his behavior caused them to lose a Georgia Senate runoff while he was in the presidency. He lost the 2020 election, and then he's saying he particularly lost Republicans, like the red wave they were looking for. So 3 times loser.
You did it again.
I didn't do anything.
You did it.
I didn't do anything.
No, you were about to go.
thought about it.
You were about to go.
I thought about it.
It was a pump fake.
I thought about it. Didn't do anything.
It was a great pump fake.
Yeah.
Got him.
Hi. We're leaving that in, didn't we?
Sup?
Oh, yeah. By the time people are hearing this, they will have heard that amazing intro from the last episode. All right. Time for some cultural, political popcorn. Welcome back, everybody. Are you guys ready? I just started drinking this tea, and it's actually working. So
Yeah,
I'm
dude,
like,
tea sounds good. It's freezing
I
in San Diego.
I needed you on that team.
I got the big P coat out. It's like anytime it's under 70 degrees in San Diego, just like start to complain.
I hope you get grilled for
65,
this
dude.
comment.
I know. I probably should be. That's what
There
I'm
are
saying.
people in our Discord freezing to death in
Europe.
I was going to say in Minnesota, but yes, in Europe as well. Those ones are literally freezing.
I put my. It's funny because I'm cold outside under 70 degrees, but I put my temperature when I sleep at 66 degrees. I don't have your fancy 8 sleeps.
Why do you need AC though right now?
Because
cold
I
enough
like it
outside.
cold. Yeah, I don't want to
You
keep
like to sleep cold. Oh my God, is there a product for you?
But like I don't want to open a window because I live next to airplanes, trains,
Okay, we have the
trams,
same
cars, homeless people yelling.
Oh, so we have the same problem. That's why I have my AC on.
So I keep the windows closed,
Yeah.
crank the AC down to 66. And because I get
Yeah.
the weighted average of all the condo like units, electricity, the electricity bill's not that bad.
That's the only time where I'm like, I want to go live in the country. When I think about like I could just have my window open, feel the air.
But I did have a
crisp,
question about like
clean.
You may have noticed that the most attractive people on this podcast have one thing in common.
What's that?
Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
It's that we own an 8-sleep mattress.
No. So I don't understand. Like, what's the difference between having my air
that
conditioner
like-
at 66
Other
versus
than it
like
making you incredibly good looking.
oh,
Yeah, is that causality?
just correlation, my friend?
All right, you're saying what's the difference having my AC at 66
Yeah, like, why don't I
versus
just
having
pump the
a
AC
cooling
Well, some of us
mattress?
don't live in some of us live in large castles, Nick, and we don't have the ability to
Heat
just
up all the
run
rooms.
the AC in our tiny little bedroom.
Live in
So-
a tiny box in the sky.
So we have to cool the entire
Yeah,
castle. And
so
it's-
that part
it's just-
does suck. Running an AC just to want your one room cooler. But I don't think even if you were just looking at that part of the argument, there is a huge difference because I still actually run my AC. Like,
Really? But wait, what do you run it at? While you sleep on the 8 sleep, you run the AC?
well, I stopped now that it's cooler.
Okay.
But like up until like a few weeks ago, it was at like
But what
68.
do you
69.
set the 8 sleep at?
Well, that just depends on how I'm feeling. But my pad is at like 67.
He said
I
he
think.
set it at like a -6, which is
Yeah.
like full Antarctic
ice
ice
sheet?
sheet.
But what's
Okay.
Erica sleep at?
like a 90 degrees.
Oh my God, that blows my mind. That blows
90
my
is
mind.
like starting and then it gets warmer throughout the night.
How many relationships break up because of the sleeping temperature?
They do.
Yeah.
You ever try to
All the biggest argument that we had in our relationship is gone.
I got a question. Like, you ever go for like a foot cuddle? you like venture over into her
to the
side
warm
and you're
side.
I'm out.
No, it's
I'm out.
it's like a sauna over there. It's literally a sauna.
Pass.
No, it's too much. But I'm not even kidding. The trouble of like the AC argument temperature and the number of blankets and all of that is like a real thing that is just gone now. Like we just don't, and now I get what I want, which is to be covered by awesome, fluffy, heavy blankets
Down?
and
Are we
to be
talking
like,
down?
yeah, and to be like
Nice.
cool and to be cool.
Cool
So-
underneath.
All right, so
Yeah.
if I'm going to venture in this like little good-looking land of yours,
No, you're out,
so
pal.
what's the deal again? We have a
Okay,
code.
so yeah, I was half asleep and Eric asked questions and I had no answers. So I have some answers now. So
2 days later.
November 18th to November 30th, so basically for the Black Friday period. That's the maximum discount that they're giving. It's $550 off the pod mattress. So you have to ask yourself if you want the mattress for only a little bit more or the cover. So I say if you have a good cover, just get the cover. Like I had a Tempur-Pedic mattress already. So I was like, I'm not going to get the mattress. So I got the cover. The cover is $250 off. Accessories are 20% off. I'm actually going to get the pillow. Do you have the pillow, Steven?
Wait, what's a pillow do?
I need a new pillow.
You guys need to work on the cover first before we talk to you about the pillow.
My pillow is disgusting. Like I went into my room this morning actually, and I looked at it, and I was like, I am so
I'm
gross. I don't even have a cover on it currently.
No, I'm getting the mask too. They have like a sleep mask.
Too many charts,
You
brother.
raw dog?
Too many
You
charts.
raw dog your pillow?
It's bad.
Yeah, well, we're gonna upgrade you.
Revealing.
I'm getting the pillow. I'm getting the sleep mask. Anyway, November 18th to 30th, $250 off and $550 off, and then use code Alfalfa for I think it's an extra $50 off. And Black Friday is definitely. I think I got mine during 4th of July. And I think I got like $100 off. So $100 off the cover versus $250 off the cover is kind of a.
This is your shot.
This is your shot. I'm telling all my friends that this is the time they should be getting it.
What'd you
and
do
we've between Steven and I, we've already sold like 15, 20.
What are you
At
doing with
least,
those savings? Rolling straight to ETH?
Oh
Sweet
God,
savings.
we'll save that for the next money episode. So yeah,
Cool.
Check that out.
Cool. You know who else sleeps like a baby? Donald Trump, because he has no moral compass or conscience.
Oh,
Really?
Oh,
why is that?
Nice segue.
Really?
I don't know. I'm just trying out the segues.
All right. So
All right.
Donald
First
has no-
rep.
Donald. Donald is running again.
running again.
Yeah, kudos to Nick, who was right last week. I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You were very good looking.
Yeah, I tried to make a bold
But
call.
you're wrong. It's fine.
Yeah.
You come up.
Bold call that in hindsight makes absolutely no sense. But yeah, Donnie, he's running again. He announced it after, tanking all of the Republican Congress races.
Hey, looking back, we already did an episode on this. But
Did you just announce it?
Yeah, he just announced it last night. So we're recording on Wednesday, the November
I
16th.
broke the news to you.
Yeah.
I love that.
I've been in bed.
You're also on a plane and in
Yeah.
bed. But he announced he said he was gonna make a big announcement 2 or 3 days before the midterm. So he essentially made it a referendum instead of on Biden. He made it on Donald Trump.
What do you think that announcement was going to be, Stephen? A big announcement.
I thought it was just going to be like an announcement of an announcement. You know how we do that? In
Well, it is
crypto
early.
sometimes?
It is early.
It's really early. I thought he would like to just keep using the free money without having any disclosures, but I don't know what he's thinking. Doesn't want to get prosecuted, maybe. Who knows?
Mega donor Ken Griffin said not going to back him.
Oh,
There was
Kenny
another
G
mega donor
absolutely
came out said not going to
shats
back
upon
him.
right?
Yeah,
He called him a 3-time loser.
and he knows that loser is a trigger.
Oh yeah,
for Donnie.
that was carefully chosen word.
Yeah, that was very carefully chosen. So
Who
anyway,
wants to back a
we'll see what
three-time
happens.
What is the 3-time loser is in reference to?
He
So he
his
lost the
behavior
second-
caused them to lose a Georgia Senate runoff while he was in the presidency. He lost the 2020 election, and then he's saying he particularly lost Republicans like the red wave they were looking for. So 3 times loser.
Yeah. There we go. Okay.
not great.
Not good.
Not
at all.
great.
No.
I don't know if anybody else has any strong comments on that, but
Well, what do you guys think about this? What is his strategy here to try to get ahead of the curve?
Well, I think the
I don't think that the man has strategy. I think he's just an impulsive guy. He just does things.
the bigger implication is on the Republican Party. So, like, we've done a podcast on Ron DeSantis in the past. This obviously impacts DeSantis' chances. Like, if Donald Trump was not going to run, it would be just cakewalk for DeSantis. How do you feel about his chances now?
Do you think that DeSantis will bring it to him?
He'll have
'Cause
to.
He'll have to.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Hasn't he always been pretty nice to Donnie?
Of course.
Yeah.
But when it comes, he's going to bring some weight from the traditional GOP crew. Donnie's still going to bring his core audience, but it's not enough. He needs to go beyond his core audience to win a general election. I think people might.
What
see
are
that.
the labels people are using? Because you have like the Trump Republicans, and then you have the what are the traditional establishment Republicans? Is that the nomenclature we're going by?
I don't even think DeSantis is like that establishment. He's like a hybrid. He's got a little populist thing in him. He's got a little culture warrior thing in him. He doesn't just talk about tax cuts. That's why the Republicans can't win anything. They just talk about it's like why Trump won in the first place is he just talked about stuff and he touched people's emotions in both directions. And Jeb Bush was just Jeb Bush and Romney and all these guys. They're literal paint on a wall. It's just nothing. Just nothing there. So DeSantis is an interesting hybrid. I don't know if his play is to go toe to toe with Donnie though. Remember when Marco did that?
He has to though.
He got smoked.
You get smoked. You're you're
little
rolling
Marco.
around. You're playing his game. You're rolling around in the mud with the greatest pig ever. You're gonna get dirty. He's gonna make you look bad.
I will say
little Marco.
Little Marco.
Oh, he's done. That's all I had to do.
yeah,
It's
he
over.
gave him the DeSanctimonious or whatever. He's gonna give him all the nicknames.
DeSanctimonious. I think he should just run with that. I don't think it's that. I think it's one of his worst nicknames, to be
That's
honest.
terrible.
Yeah, he come up with better.
It's no Pocahontas.
But you know what I find fascinating is the day after Trump's announcement, the headline on CNN was debunking or truth finding his speech. And I'm do you realize that your last mea culpa from the 2016 election was giving Trump the airtime? He was just if people don't remember, but he was just like tail risk candidate who wasn't even considered to even have a chance to become president, but they kept giving him airtime, and then all of a sudden his kind of message spread further. So they continue to give him the airtime, and I don't really care either way, but just if you're obviously CNN's motivations are to not get him reelected, but yet they give him the airtime. So I think that's kind of confounding, from a media perspective.
I feel like their motivations are to get him elected.
Why? Because
It's
ratings
so
go up.
good for their bottom line.
I mean, New York Times subscriptions went up while he was.
This has made them all so much money. They just want this pinata. He's like a pinata that just beat and money falls out. They love it.
That's interesting because we've always talked about how all the media establishments are always liberal leaning.
They can be liberal leaning, but they can milk a Republican for dollars.
Still capitalists.
And yeah,
Few other news notes. The Senate is confirmed majority Democrats because at best the Republicans can get a 50-50 split, which means the vice president has the tiebreaker. It'll finally get decided December 6th when this Georgia runoff takes place. The Republicans did clinch the House. They have a majority in the House. And I will say for all of our pro-crypto listeners, which is all of you, Tom Emmer got voted by the GOP crew to be majority whip, which you can kind of consider the Speaker of the House as numero uno in the House of Representatives when you have the majority. And whip is typically number 2. So he's in a leadership position. He's pro-crypto. He's also been very skeptical of Gary Gensler. He's kind of thrown out some potential probes into Gary Gensler and FTX relationship. And as a leader, he might be able to influence which Republicans, maybe some of those 20 new Republicans that are coming in that are pro-crypto into the House of Representatives, get put on which committees, who gets to lead those committees. And so I don't know. I think it's like a little grass shoot of hope.
How far do you have to dig to see the Gensler connections?
Maybe not so much, but I think Emmer being in a leadership position in the GOP is good for us.
Oh, we got a long road, huh?
Yeah, it's gonna be a brutal.
Oh
road,
my
but
God, it's so insane how bad it all is. But it's also insane how terrible Gary is.
But you guys consider this progress. This is
Well,
progress.
what I wished is that the Republicans would at least took one additional seat in the Senate, so that they had, when you're in the majority, you can start investigations, you can hold people accountable. They're only going to be able to do that in the House. I think it would have carried a lot more weight if they were able to also do it in the Senate. So we'll see.
It's a damn shame.
I know.
Maybe they shouldn't have sent the guy who sold diet pills on the internet who doesn't even live in Pennsylvania to run for Senate. I don't know, just a thought. Maybe
Trump picked him. Trump anointed him.
Urbani's probably sold
Anointed
diet
him.
pills.
I have not. I kind of wish I did at one point.
It's not really an anointing anymore. Is there something where you touch somebody and they die?
No, you send them checks from your lawless rebills that the Trump campaign has gotten so many campaign donors on. Listen, I understand FTC rules and what you're allowed to like put on a.
Wait, they're rebilling people?
Oh my God. They had like basically you opted into a subscription without knowing it by donating to the Trump campaign.
Wait,
it was the most egregious.
Their campaign is a subscription?
So not now, but right after the whole fiasco, Trump not winning, he started a fierce campaign to raise legal funds to defend the president against, people trying to like the deep state, whatever. And his landing pages, his emails were so aggressive. I mean, he was opting in people to subscriptions that they didn't probably know about. And typically, if you were a an advertiser who had not the former president of the United States, the FTC would freeze your assets, figure out what your
from
liability is.
or
I might know how this plays out, not personally, but, through acquaintance maybe. And so anyway, he's had a good portion of his base on a rebill without probably them knowing about it. In any case, he's got a lot of money, so he anoints them with cash. I think that's how this all works out.
Not really, though, but he didn't give them any money.
No,
he kept all the money for himself. He's just rebilling people and flying around in his jet or something.
Well, I mean, that money, I forget.
That was like a gripe of the candidates. They're like, you anointed these people and you just
So that
them out to
particular
die.
type of fund that he put that money in, you're right. He was allowed to use it at his discretion.
That's why I thought he wasn't going to announce he was going to run, because I thought he wanted to just keep his little fun little party slush fund going for a while. Now he's got all the disclosures and everything.
Well, he's a faulty kingmaker. Either way is what the results played out.
Yeah, not looking great. All right, who can we shit on next? Oh, the New York Times. I didn't think I could think less of the New York Times until I read the piece they wrote on Sam Bankman-Fried.
That was so bad.
It was the most worthless. It was such drivel. It was so egregious. I was giving some credence to the tinfoil idea that SBF was some sort of government plant before, but what's the other? After reading all the media stuff, I'm like, he's a plant. He's a plant. He's just, they basically took this guy who's just Bernie Madoff 2.0, literally. Maybe worse in some ways, just the egregiousness of it and how he just absolutely raked normal people over the coals, not even super rich people. And they wrote a puff piece on him. It's an
Such a
actual
puff
piece. It's
such
so
a puff piece.
disgraceful.
So, is the plant? Are we talking CCP? Are we talking Democratic Party? What are we talking here? What?
It's weird. It's a follow the money thing, right? And the money all goes to Democratic candidates, right?
And you have a Democratic Congress with a Democratic administration, and we have a scenario where there's zero oversight and yet to be the hammer thrown down on him.
Maxine
Ken
Waters
Griffin
and blowing
pointed out-
kisses to him, and he's just got all the highlights there. It's so bad. But yeah, to the CCP thing seems plausible too. I mean, maybe I don't know. I'm just wildly speculating now. But
There's no evidence to that, but yeah.
Yeah, there's no evidence to that other than there's a guy named Wang. And that sounds
semi-racist.
sounds like a name sounds like a CCP name.
Nice.
I don't know. That wasn't serious, but
Yeah.
But yeah, the media stuff is gross. I mean, Reuters came out with a piece yesterday too, saying he did the financial system a favor. That was the headline.
Oh, terrible.
Are you
Disgusting.
serious?
Yeah,
It was
the headline. Reuters. Why SBF did the financial system a favor.
Thank you so much.
Thank
then-
you.
But then you really get the story when, quote unquote, SBF is thought he was talking to a friend, which is a Vox reporter, and you just see his chat messages, and that's where it really comes out.
Oh, really? Let the mask slip.
Where
there,
his, effective altruism, public face was playing a game.
I just think that everyone involved thinks that the average everyday person that's watching all of this is an absolute idiot. Even that comment from Sam, oh, I thought I was talking to a friend. Shut the fuck up. What are you talking about? You know exactly who you were talking to.
I'm sure his lawyer is saying the exact same
You knew
thing.
this would be.
Why is he still talking?
Why are you still talking? Exactly.
He
Good
posts
point.
stuff, and every comment is just die.
You ruined people's lives. You literally ruined people's lives. You ruined the landscape of crypto single-handedly. God knows how many people are involved in the background in all of this. I have no idea how deep that rabbit hole goes, with all of this plant stuff. maybe plant, maybe not. Maybe it became one halfway through the process. Who knows? But I think that all this really does is it makes a person go like, yeah, there's no control
He
here.
referenced people in context of him putting forward this like moral and ethical face as the shibboleth. I had to look it
Yeah,
up.
what the hell did that
What
mean?
does
It's
that word
a
mean?
particular class or group of people, especially a long-standing one, regarded as outmoded or no longer important.
Wow.
I mean, you want to like define what elitism means. I mean, like it's kind of like encapsulated in that little
Damn.
thread there.
I hate that Sam knows words that I don't. It makes me feel a little bad about myself. But
Well, I think he's a smart guy. Obviously, he's a smart guy, smart trader. I think he fucked over a lot of people, and I think we should all move on from him. But I don't know what else you have on your list.
well, we
but-
wanted to dig into one of the elements of like Sam's like. So I don't know if this was like a fake thing or maybe it was a real thing. I kind of feel like it was a real thing in a particular way, but it was sort of like, as a real thing that sort of turned evil. Sam was very famous for his like push for effective altruism.
Yeah.
effective altruism.
Effective altruism.
Yeah, it was the
This is what we're-
branding
this
of
is what
his,
we're gonna go
it
into
was the
today?
branding of his Ponzi
Yeah,
scheme.
I'm curious to get your takes on it and just your takes on how to help the world in general, what our moral duty is to help people. I think that there's a lot to unpack here. A case could be made about Sam that, this is a generous case to be made, I would say. The other case is just he's like a deranged sort of lunatic, sociopathic douche. But the other case is sort of like the, he's basically like Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones, right? And he just like believes his vision of the world is so correct, and the world would be better if he could implement it. And if he has to burn down a few people in his way to get there, the world would be better. Ergo, like his actions are sort of justified.
Well, I mean, I'd be interested in talking about this, like Sam aside, like is effective altruism a good political mode of operating? Because like, politics is a process to make decisions, and effective altruism seems like a philosophy in which you make decisions on how to make the world a better place, right?
Yes.
So like, are we going to talk about this? Like Sam
Yeah,
aside, like just
well,
what are the merits of?
Well, can it only be political, or can we also talk?
I mean,
like,
we should-
from a humanitarian.
yeah, I think-
standpoint?
it's
do you
both.
want to break down what it is?
Well, here,
first?
here's what I understand it to be. It's a way of maximizing happiness, and it's not just that you put efforts to anything that is good. It is what is most optimally good. Ideally with like evidence, facts, ideally math, like dollar per live saved is something that I've seen as like and it uses an expected value calculation.
It's cold calculating charity.
Right, but it specifies that it must go to the most optimal, like
Yes.
charity efforts, not just anything good. So like, you could give food to someone down the street, but that is not it is good, but is not the most optimal use of your dollars, right? So that's the difference. That's how I understand it.
Because
To
that food that you gave probably cost $11, and $11 could have actually been instead used to save 3 lives in Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so another thing I and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understand it is that the means in which you go about it does not matter. What matters is the outcome. Consequentialism is like a word that I've read before. That like what matters is the outcomes, not necessarily how you get there. Is that part of their like explicit kind of way of operating, or is this just something that is like just a current criticism of effective altruism?
I mean, that was the vibe. Like we've talked about utilitarianism a little bit. When we've
I mean,
talked
this is
about
a birth out of utilitarianism,
Yeah,
obviously, right? Like,
it's this very cold, calculating political philosophy that seeks to sort of maximize aggregate utility above all else. And in the process, like you quickly go down a rabbit hole where you see it sort of like destroys individuals in a particular way. And that's kind of like the vibe I get from effective altruism to a degree. Maybe we should go by this like point by point and like
Sure.
get your thoughts
So
on
we're
it.
very clearly separating from SBF, right?
yeah,
'Cause,
let's separate him for now. Like, I'm just curious about this.
Let's not say like this thing sucks because Sam did it. That's
I
kind of like
actually
Hitler
think
was a
the-
vegan
I
type
think
stuff.
the
and it's not,
movement, the
particularly
movement's
useful.
being dragged through the mud because he is saying that he was this thing.
Yeah.
And like
possibly did evil in its name.
right. This is not the movement.
Yeah. So with that caveat aside, I think the first thing is like something you alluded to. It basically EA emphasizes that like everybody's well-being counts equally. Like, this is a quote from Peter Singer. Like, I think he's the founder of it. It makes no moral difference whether the person I can help is a neighbor's child 10 yards away from me or a Bengali whose name I shall never know 10,000 miles away. The moral point of view requires us to look beyond the interests of our own society.
Or I'll add to that, it seems from what I understand is that it also considers equal to your neighbor or that Bengali, but a child that has not yet been born 2 generations from now. I mean, SBF has been quoted saying there are literally trillions of people who have not been born yet. And I think, when you come to expected value calculation, we can get in this later, but like...
This is the prioritization section of effective altruism, which is like another part of it, right? Which is like, which causes do we sort of prioritize within like, obviously we have to figure out who we're helping and how much they matter, right? But then obviously there's like different causes in aggregate. Like, so the big causes that are supported is like global health and development, like poverty,
So
tropical diseases.
how do you want to approach this? Do you want to drill down?
Well,
on
I
each point
wanted
as you go?
to get your thoughts on that first point.
Okay, so like the first point, like because we could do it point by point. I think the first point, and when I was looking at this stuff recently, it was like they used an example. I think I was watching Peter Singer's TED Talk, and he used an example that said like something to the effect of like, if you see a child drowning in a pool, would you go save it even if you're wearing an expensive suit? Like, of course you would go like jump in the pool with your suit on to save the child. And then he uses that to extrapolate. It's like, well, that's the exact same as like children who are dying in third world countries. So go save this child and forget about your suit, expensive suit. I think those two things are completely different to me.
Well, are we talking about like the value of any life, like the value of the person like let's say the 3 of your lives, in relation to my perspective, you're saying it is equal to like the person I don't know in some country I've never been to. And like, I do think there is this like natural discounting function that happens, right? Like it just happens naturally. Like I would obviously, like save you 3 over people I probably don't know. Like, I don't know if that's moral or not, but it's just like this natural discounting function that happens.
Which one of us 3 first?
I mean, I agree with you. Like this whole line of effective altruism, like feels like a little bit, I don't know if sociopathic is the word. It's some sort of pathology. Like it feels like something that like a robotic, like cold calculating like AI would do. That it's just not human.
But I will say, when I first heard it, I had this like immediate reaction that was like, well, obviously, like you,
right.
Of course you want to like put your impact to the thing that has the most impact. I was like, isn't that most people's default to like, if you are going to donate money, if you're going to put time, don't you want to put it to the thing that has the most impact? And maybe that's not the case, but I guess my immediate reaction to this whole thing was like, well, yeah, that's obvious. This doesn't seem like a very nuanced, different way of thinking.
Even that to me, I don't think is obvious. We can go into that on another point, I guess. I mean, but what about you? Do you think every single person on Earth is the same? Like as from your perspective, and you should strive to help everybody?
In terms of
yes and no. I think all of these ideologies are dysfunctional for that reason that you're describing. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, if I looked at it in a cold, calculating way, or if I looked at life objectively and I asked myself, is the Bengali kid and the kid in San Diego the same? I would say, yeah, they are the same. Like, it's a human life. But then if I ask myself, are they the same from my perspective and my worldview and my impact and desire to help people, I would say, well, I come from a tribe. That tribe is 92103 zip code, San Diego, California. I should want and have a desire to help the people closest to me. I probably, for most people, they'll want to help the people that are similar to them in terms of religion or ethnicity or whatever it might be. Pick a bucket. people find ways to identify, right? And once you find something that you identify with, you go, yeah, I'm most likely going to feel drawn. That's a human thing, as you said, to feel drawn to want to help those people. I want to help Americans, because we often say in America, like, why aren't we helping Americans as much as we help all these other nations? So that's kind of the challenge with any ideology. When you look at it that way, you have to define it in this very grandiose way, where on the one hand you look at it and you have the reaction Nick had, which is also the reaction I have. It's like, yeah, that's true. Like, yes, they are equal. They are equal. But to who? And I guess the whole thing for me is like, it just feels like new age branding for utilitarianism. I don't really see the difference. I think the only difference I can think of is like, well, there's the word altruist. So that's slightly different. It's like they don't necessarily focus on themselves. There's like a removal of the self from the highest good. And then, it's this idea of like what's most effective. And so it just becomes an argument of a bunch of nuances of how they go about executing the same thing.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is kind of a rebrand of utilitarianism. Like Peter Singer's a utilitarian guy. So do we know the distinctions between the two, or is just this like a offshoot rebrand, effort?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to find some quote I had from some utilitarian stuff, but here's just one thing from Effective Altruism's website, effectivealtruism.org. Is it the same as utilitarianism? Utilitarians are usually enthusiastic about effective altruism, but many effective altruists are not utilitarians and care intrinsically about things other than welfare, such as violation of rights, freedom and equality, personal virtue, and more. In practice, most people give some weight to a range of different ethical theories. Let's see here. The only ethical position necessary for effective altruism is believing that helping others is important. Unlike utilitarianism, effective altruism doesn't necessarily say that doing everything possible to help others is obligatory, and doesn't advocate for violating people's rights, even if doing so would lead to the best consequences. So what does that say? It's like, so a utilitarian would take action no matter what. An altruist would sit back and say, well, let's make sure that this action is necessary. We're not obligated to take this action. And then secondly, what I'm hearing is a utilitarian would violate an individual's rights and hurt a group of people in order to serve the best outcome for all.
So I take issue with that, and I'm probably jumping in front of Steven's bullet points here, but like, like Bill Gates is recognized as like the most effective altruist in the world, like by this community. And like, he spent his early life being like a business predator, like hurting other people in that business world to get to a point where he's now able to give back. And like that to me goes against the ethos of what was on that website. Like, okay, so we're not gonna hurt you. We're gonna help people. It's like, okay, I think we're talking about, do the means justify the ends?
Yeah, there's a little nuance in this part of like where they have this earn to give. Like if you can make lots of money, then you should, so that you can give it away. But there is this thing where some people have an ideological orientation where they say, in order to accumulate large amounts of money, you have to do it at the expense of other people. And so if you come from that ideological orientation,
and you're not supposed to do that according to effective altruism.
So this is where it gets a little muddy for me.
It seems very muddy.
Yeah.
It seems especially muddy once you start getting into like the long-term like a lot of effective altruism relates to like climate change and stuff like that. And we have to like prioritize not just the present, but like the long-term, the people who exist in the future as well. But like a whole element of like fighting climate change does revolve around like making sacrifices in the present, to benefit the future. You could say like, oh, I'm not utilitarian because I'm not harming anybody to do that. Like there are policies you make in the here and now that may lead to people in third world countries dying because they don't have like the cheap energy to get like this particular stuff
from fossil fuels. For example, right?
Yeah, and like a utilitarian might say, well, that's fine. Well, we're going to kill 2 million people in the developed world today, but we're going to save 100 million people 30 years from now.
Right. There's like a classic story. I think we've talked about utilitarianism in the past. I forget what episode it was.
I think it was one of our political philosophies.
Where we compared the different ones
Good
together.
episode. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I like that. And I think we didn't bring this up, but there's this like question that's posed for utilitarianism and usually is used as a criticism against it. But it's like, let's say you're in a town and there's tons of social unrest. There's people rioting in the streets. People are getting injured. There's violent crime happening everywhere. There's looting everywhere. And you're a judge. And there's someone up for trial. And he's innocent. But if you convict him guilty, the unrest will quell. The unrest will go away. The people will be happy. Numerous people will be saved from more violent crime, more robberies, etc. But you will convict an innocent man. And I think the utilitarianism view, I don't know if it's necessarily the effective altruism view, but like the utilitarianism view would say, well, yeah, you convict that innocent man so that hundreds, maybe thousands of people will not be subject to like violent crime. And like, there's this like flaw of justice that comes into play with utilitarianism. And I think it does come.
It's like the trolley problem.
What's the trolley problem? Yeah.
It's the trolley problem.
What's the trolley problem?
Exactly what you described. But the trolley problem represents it as like you're going down a trolley, you choose between two tracks. Either way, you're killing somebody important or a group of people, and you have to choose what to do. And so the trolley problem then extrapolates to all these other situations in life, like the one you described.
Yeah. Right. So like the trolley problem is kind of easy if you're saying like the train is going no matter what you want to do. You have one person lying on the track this way, four people on the track this way. Would you flip the switch to kill one?
Well, it's going at the 4 people, right?
It's going at the 4.
But you could switch it to kill one.
But then the idea, like I think where it gets a little muddier is like when they say like, how about if you could push a guy off the platform onto the track to stop the trolley in its entirety, and that way you save 2 over here and 16 over here. And then I think that's where people start to be like, well, I wouldn't push someone to their
this
death.
is an interesting concept because this is like the argument of AI ethics, which is one of the things that effective altruism tries to tackle. They put a bunch of money into this, but this is like when you hard code these rules into, say, I don't know, an auto drive program. Like if
it's insane,
if the AI senses a grandma that's like towards the end of her productive life, but there's like 3 babies or 1 baby in like, which does the computer program decide?
The stuff that is ahead is
this is a little we're getting tangential to the
I like
discussion, but like
it's relevant.
I like
it.
These ethical conversations, though, if we don't solve them, what AI is going to solve them?
No, it's crazy how
you're right.
Like
We
how
have to solve
AI
it.
is bringing back the old school philosophy, like that we've sort of like lost touch with over millennia. Like
we've completely lost touch.
Yeah.
We don't ask those questions anymore.
This is one of the things that they've seemed to put a lot of money behind because they're like, malevolent AI could impact trillions of people in the future. Like if a bad AI is born or a biological warfare or another disease happens, you're talking about hundreds of billions, trillions of people that it can impact in the future, but it doesn't really focus on problems we have today. And I was thinking about, the expected value calculations we do. You do it in poker, you do it in investing, I do it in business. Does it really apply to these scenarios? And I don't know. And we talked about this a little bit on the lottery episode, where you have these unbounded expected value calculations. It kind of gets warped, and I'm not sure it really works. Where like if you put an unbounded, expected valuation is the probability of an event taking place and then the value of that event. So if you put the value of the event at trillions of people in like the next 10 generations, like literally you unbound the potential impact of an event, I don't know if the expected value formula works in that scenario. It gets warped because like you could literally apply that to everything. I mean, how far are we, doing this net present value of lives? Are we literally going out like 10,000 years? And then if you do that, then you could literally wipe out so much good that you could do in the next 100 years.
So I think we've done a good job of like destroying the EA thesis, but I think you can like bound it a little better. You can bound it a little better, like in terms of just like charitable giving. Like if you're going to give $1 or you're going to give $1,000 or $10,000 or $1 million, like in which capacity would you want to give your million away?
As a formula for purely determining like where to put your dollars. Like,
Yeah.
cool. As a philosophy of life and something to put out there, is just
the part of the theory that's kind of gross is where it tries to equate and value particular kinds of life, and like to your point, it like falls apart in my opinion rather quickly, because even if I agree that okay, the value of the life in Africa is the same value as like my neighbor's kid down the road, well, if you also say that you're into like long-term thinking and you're kind of into this idea of mapping some like EV tree where all your decisions ripple, like who has the higher chance of becoming the next Bill Gates, like effective altruist? Who has the highest chance of like impacting the world? Is it like some random like kid in some impoverished nation of Africa, or is it like your neighbor in a wealthy area? So if you think down this decision tree, it could end up on this path where you're like start doing like eugenics type stuff. And that seems bad.
Probability
So
bad. Weird, yeah.
I also found this like conundrum with valuing every life equal in this kind of like philosophical theory, but it also kind of assumes that the richest people decide where the money goes, right? Which kind of happens already. Like the best capital allocators tend to get more capital to allocate because they allocate it efficiently. But at the same time, it says every life is equal. It also says that like, yeah, we're okay with like just the richest entrepreneurs, financiers, whatever they may be, allocating the charity capital. And, you know, like I'm generally okay with good capital allocators getting most of the capital to do it. But to me, this sounds like I don't know, a little conundrum in like how you put this into a box. So I don't know if it's a flaw. It's where another place where it gets muddy for me is how do you reconcile those two as an effective altruist?
I think they're like easy wins, like low hanging fruit, right? Like the effective altruists that I looked up just in the past 48 hours were all pretty much in agreement on mosquito nets. Okay, so like I think that's low hanging fruit. Okay, that like helps a lot of people. And
Mosquito nets in third world countries, where
yeah.
disease spreads.
In terms of like
malaria,
raw benefit,
like
like
malaria.
dollar per life.
Yeah, malaria kills a lot of people. Mosquito nets are cheap. This is like a high ROI on your charitable dollar. I think there's like the part that I struggle with is well, I don't even struggle. Like the part that's interesting is like at some point that's going to be overfunded. You know, they said these same individuals also said that like when a crisis happens, like Hurricane Katrina, that gets overfunded, and then like your marginal dollar doesn't help them as much. And it's like, doesn't that end up becoming the same issue? Like, okay, so now you see that malaria nets are a big issue, and then that gets overfunded. So it's like I don't know, like I'm into the idea of like allocating capital properly. It's just like
wouldn't you say though that it's probably a much lesser of two bads situation where you sort of tackle the most efficient things and then sort of get to the point where they're become a little bit inefficient versus a model where we just spray and pray stuff from the get-go with like no efficiency.
Totally.
And I think that's like, we shouldn't just talk about like some of the weirdly pseudo evil aspects of this. I think a lot of it is good. I think there's the general idea that like people should think about like the actual like expectation of their like units of output is kind of like a duh thing to me as somebody who thinks like that normally. But I feel like people just throw money at charity all the time without thinking because it feels good or something. Maybe the cause is good, but they don't think about like how the charity actually uses the money, how much of that money like actually
goes
makes
to programs versus I think like those administration.
Those are totally admirable things, like as like a guiding principle to think about.
I think we've even brought it up in the. I remember I asked Franco in the Discord. I asked Kunal in the Discord. Kunal was like assigned to Google's philanthropic arm, and like I asked both those guys, like, how do you even measure impact on a philanthropic effort? You know, like if you're like putting dollars for something, how do you measure impact? And it's like both of these guys who like work in the space, they're like, there's no real answer. Like that's the hardest part. It's like measuring, you know, the impact of your dollar becomes really hard when you're saying like, oh, we give blankets to homeless. Like, okay, so you bought this many blankets, but like, what impact does that have?
I could see how you'd very quickly get to like, well, how many lives saved or lives improved divided by the dollars, or dollars divided by, lives saved improved. I could see how you could quickly get to that, but then
Micro measurements of impact.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But even for them who are professionals at this, it wasn't clear. It was ambiguous.
It
to them.
was so ambiguous, and I'm looking to them for guidance, and they were all just like, it's very difficult.
Well, I think most like effective altruists would probably say that this like whole like giving blankets to homeless, they'd probably say like this is a huge like misallocation of like resources. You're giving one homeless person a blanket so they're warmer. Like all of your time and money could have saved 10,000 African kids from literally dying, right? To them, that's probably like a
could
calculation.
have all been mosquito nets. Like, but that's my problem, is that like we end up getting this echo chamber where it's like everything becomes mosquito nets.
Maybe it all is mosquito nets until we get all the mosquito nets. If what you value is just saving the largest raw quantity of lives.
But like if it's so simple and so low hanging, then Gates would have already got it with the Melinda and Bill Foundation. Like,
he's done a lot though, right?
Yeah.
Like he's like, done
so
insane
how
stuff.
much more does Bill and Melinda need for something that costs 13 cents? Like,
Well,
good question.
I don't know. I mean, he certainly can raise money beyond the money he has, and I think like on the whole, I'm not like a conspiracy theorist, but I think in general, like his efforts are like net positive.
I guess what I'm talking about is like the difficulty in just like the KPIs. It's like so you can see that like this thing is low cost and high output, but then it's like, well, who's already doing, like, it's so hard.
Yeah, you're saying like you're just so easy to get to the point of diminishing returns
Sure.
for that dollar, for that effort. I've thought about this, like, instead of viewing the world as all these different countries where the governments they have programs to take care of the citizens. What if you imagined it like just a split of 100,000 villages, where the village, all it does is provide simple protection, but it doesn't give welfare. It doesn't give social services. So those who are poor, it's up to the community members to kind of help each other. And so you have this scenario where, like, as a leader of a country, your job is to not collect taxes and distribute money to then provide social services. Your job is to do the basics and then say, hey, community members, there's members of this community that need help. You should direct your efforts locally. And I've always thought that, like, as you distribute funds, like you might be best to like look locally. And if everyone did that, is it faulty to say that like most things could be taken care of? Like if most people just focus their efforts on their community, would that be beneficial? I could certainly see the cases where these high net worth, communities, just like the money keeps funneling into them, and their problems are rich people problems, and certain people, villages in say Africa or other, South American countries don't have any, the community members don't have any to like help out the community. But I don't know, like when I think about giving money, I don't necessarily think of like the pure expected value. I'm like, well, what's in my community? What's closest to me? If I had kids, I'd be like, how could I impact their education, in their community? Their education. So it becomes a little selfish at that point.
Well,
but
your
like
kids are higher value to you than some unknown kid.
I mean,
How
yeah,
dare
I think
you.
there is this discounting effect that happens, and you can't ignore it. And like, again, like from your perspective, there are certain people who are more important in your life than others. On the whole, when you're presented with the question, yes, every life is equal. But I don't know. I think I would have liked to, like, let's say we go back to the lottery question. I would like to improve the lives of my future generations, and maybe it helps, similar cohorts. But yeah, maybe some of that money would be like the effective altruism, highest expected value, most impact for the dollar. I'm sure Jeff Bezos is going through this question right now. I mean, he's got like unlimited, essential capital to put to this, and he's probably wondering like, how the fuck do I divvy up?
So it's kind of like the I don't know if I'm off base here, but it feels like the original bifurcation between like left and right politics. It's like like a large centralized authority that determines who gets everything versus like a more localized, we'll take care of ourselves. Is that off base?
I feel like it's pretty accurate. I mean, a lot of right charitable philosophy does revolve around local groups, the church. It's done locally, versus a lot of left charity does revolve around extracting a bunch of money from the broad populace, centralizing it, and then sort of like redistributing it in a particular way. So I think it's pretty good.
It's funny because this is a theme that's literally started since we started this podcast. It started when we were just doing, Tipsy Talk on Armand's Flow podcast, where this theme of like individual versus the collective, where does the energy go? What is the better operating model? And I think it shows up here. Like, are we better off just taking care of our own and
like having everybody do that?
Right.
Like on a large scale, then everyone gets taken care of.
And it's easy I think it's easy to understand in the extreme. Like if you go to the extreme, like a village of like 1,000 people, you could see how like the elders take care of the help with raising babies and, things are shared in a small community basis. But when you go to the other extreme, it's like very inefficient.
So hold on. Like I was originally sort of devil's advocating myself because I was saying like, oh, well, that localized giving only works when that local municipality has enough to give. But like that actually applies in like little third world villages where like nobody has anything and everyone's kind of like helping each other get by. Like that actually does apply.
Right. Like the marginal dollar in that smaller, let's say poorer community actually has maybe a proportional impact, that say a larger, more wealthy community has to the impact of lives potentially.
I think another thing we can't forget is people do and give the most when they have individually experienced that pain. So like if you look at charities people start or the money that they donate, it's like if they had a family member go through a particular kind of disease, they're more likely to start that GoFundMe or to donate to that every year or to do that charitable action every year. So like ultimately, these things are most effective at the grassroots individual level. And most, if you look at an individual's percentage of dollars and how they tend to give them back, it's going to be toward the things and the people that like speak most deeply to them.
Passionate about,
yeah. Like for example, I mean, I remember just a personal example, but like I remember when my mom had cancer. She was, seeing all these young kids as well, like going through it. And I remember her telling me like how she wants to spend more time now. And she's like, if I'm in pain, oh my God, imagine how much pain they're in. And for the first time, I think she even became aware of something that most of us are not aware of at all. Oh, how painful is that for a child to have cancer? Like that's really, really terrible and painful. But it's something that exists because there's too much information in the world. We can't take it all in, right? You see the ad for help the kids with cancer, but you just, there's all these other things. And which one's the most effective? Until you experience it and it's close to you, you don't know you don't understand it. So then she's like, I'm going to put my time into these hospitals. I'm going to put my money. I'm going to put my energy. Only when you truly experience it does it become into your awareness. And I think that's a good filter, actually, because then you can actually do real good work instead of just like sitting back like a calculator and saying, I'm going to give here, I'm going to give here, I'm going to give here. I think that works well for a billionaire. Like someone who has an incredible amount of capital who wants to give it all back is like, okay, really, where do I put this
nets.
capital? Yeah, that's like the only answer. And maybe part of that algorithm is like, all right, we fill the bucket to this level and then we slow down. We slow it down and we move it over here. But yeah, I think there's something to be said for that.
I think you could argue that might have on the whole a better expected value. Like if people just focused on where they felt the most pain, they would actually give more, not just in money, but in time. And that maybe produces a overall net
kind of becomes
positive effect.
Democratic as well. It's like, things that have less pain in aggregate get less funding, and that might make sense.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go for it.
I want to get your thoughts on something, but it's kind of.
I was gonna say something that might.
Yeah.
Tail everything off.
Okay. Well,
so I don't want to kill your thoughts.
No, let's you and I see if we can bring this home. So. One of these things about these frameworks that I find interesting, I want to see if this resonates with you guys. Human beings love frameworks because like the same way that in physics we're looking for like a theory of everything. Why are we looking for a theory of everything? Because we want to apply words and formulas to crystallize and make life concrete. Effective altruism, utilitarianism, any form of philosophy or way of living your life Ultimately, these are just formulas and principles to help you with decision making, behavior, thought processes, how to go about living your life, and then how to pass that along to other people around you, because ultimately what you're arguing for is the best system possible. Hey, if everyone did this, we'd have the best system possible. It'd be the closest thing to utopia. So everyone's fighting, in a sense, like, accumulating capital to get to the point, like a fucking SBF. I'm going to get to the point where I can. It's like that famous Chamath video, right? Get the fucking money, and then you can have a seat at the table.
Right.
And it is one of my favorite videos of him, because he's right. You get to see the table, and then you can have a say in how you'd like the world to look and feel and operate. But at the end of the day, all these formulas fall apart at some point. And I think this is what the AI ethics question is going to stumble through as well. We still are constantly fighting for all these different pathways and frameworks of what is the best way forward. And we always will, until I think we realize that everything is situational and subjective at the end of the day. There is no one right recipe for every situation and every person and every place. It's always going to change, and it's always going to keep evolving. But it's almost like for the sake of laziness, in a sense, to provide ourselves we all like having a little cheat sheet. That cheat sheet tells me what I need to think, how I need to feel, what's the right decision. I don't know if there is anything that will ever do justice to what we need. I think it's going to have to always be situational, and that's what makes us human more than anything, personally. So I like these ideas. I like comparing different philosophies, but I don't think any one is more right than the other. I mean, that's what The Good Place does with the trolley problem episode. It goes through it over and over and over.
I finished The Good Place
yes!
last night, actually.
Nice. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But that's what it ultimately does, right? It's like, fuck, no matter how much Chidi sits there and he tries to find the answer, he spends eternity looking for the answer. Chidi's the character in The Good Place. Where does he land? He ultimately becomes human, and he's just like, fuck, I gotta just stop. I gotta stop this. I won't give the show away for people, but that's a huge part of the story of the show, is this philosopher character trying to find the right way, So
that's pretty good. I mean, that ties in to a lot of what I wanted to wrap up with.
Yeah, give it to me.
I have this observation that people who are really, 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 really smart tend to want to solve the things around them. They tend to want to solve the world, and they tend to overestimate their capacity to crunch all of the variables and underestimate the infinite complexity of the world around them. And you can, much like some AI gone wild, just get off on some horrible tangent where you fail to comprehend this, and you end up doing something that is not correct, or you become paralyzed, thinking that there is a quote unquote correct answer when in reality there isn't. And I think in doing that, you also sort of paradoxically lose something of what it means to be human, right? There is something, even though I think a lot of EA people would say they're very pro-human, there also is something oddly anti-human about it at the same time, and how it sort of tries to reduce everything about us into these quantifiable little bits and atoms, and just measure all of the utility throughout time. It's just not how we are designed as a species, I guess. And I think it's fine to use these things as a bit of a guidepost, but when we take them too seriously, I think it can take us down really, really bad paths sometimes.
Hell yeah, brother. Beautiful.
Thank you, Hulk Hogan.
All right, that was awesome. Anything else to?
No, that was fun, boys.
All right, cool, beautiful. Love that discussion, boys.
That was really good.
Nice.
This is why I do this.
Ah,
That was awesome. See you guys.
All right, see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.